Fiancé's little sister accused him of a terrible crime, while hidden family secrets unravel, leaving me questioning his innocence and our future. We've been together 2.5 years, and have been friends 15 years. We used to be neighbors and I was best friends with his older sister, so I know his family pretty well. They have 4 adopted siblings that came into their life shortly after we had met. I am 27F and Fiancé is 25 male. His baby sister is one of the adopted kids. Everyone's always said they were close. I noticed it was a little weird when I moved in with his family for a bit, but I never paid it any mind. We got pregnant in March of last year and she was pretty unhappy about it. About 2 months later, 16 at the time, she announces her pregnancy. Her boyfriend lived with us all at the time, so it didn't really come as a surprise. We got close while we were both pregnant, bonded over everything despite our 10 years age gap. Both of our babies ended up in the NICU and it was after we both were home that things started shifting noticeably. Her attitude changed towards everyone. She started drinking, dressing differently. It's been about 6 months since her kid was born, and she is a completely different person. She asked to come and live with me and my fiancé a few months ago and we told her that she could when she was 18. She stopped coming over. We visited his family multiple times in the last few months. I noticed their behavior towards me had changed and literally asked them if I had done something to upset them and they all told me no. I asked my fiancé if he still loved me because he couldn't look me in my face. And when he did, something just looked off. 2 weeks ago, the sister packs up and leaves to go live with her other 2 blood siblings, leaving the youngest. She apparently went to her sister who works for CPS and said that their adoptive mother was abusing her. They came up with paperwork and everything and they said they signed it because they were too scared to fight it and lose the youngest kid. Now 5 days ago, my fiancé comes to me and asks me not to get mad. Please don't go fighting anybody and please don't yell at me. I'm like, okay, why are you being weird? He tells me his sister and younger cousin, 18F, have come out with accusations against him. His sister said that he did something but allegedly refuses to specify, and his cousin said he sent her a D-pic on Snapchat. These allegations against him happened about 2 months ago. And I just found out. I was at their house, hanging out with them and my kids. Planning our wedding. I hung out with that sister and her baby. Nobody told me fucking anything. Apparently they were all scared I would leave him and whoop on his sister. I'm talking to his mom yesterday and she mentions how they had him stop by on his way home from work a month ago, to apologize to his cousin and sister for what he had done. My uncle and dad made me is what he said. His mom also mentions that the whole time he's apologizing, the sister had both arms wrapped around his waist and her face in his chest. She goes it's okay with a straight face and walks back inside. I don't why but this infuriates me more than the rest of what's going on. I don't understand why she would be around us so much if he had done something. And why she'd wait 10 years to speak up. Or on the other hand, I don't understand why he'd keep it from me as his fiancé and also why he let her grab on him like that after accusing him of something so foul. He and his family all say it's a lie. His cousin literally got caught fucking her brother and they had to be legally separated, so I don't know how valid her word even is. Also he doesn't have Snap or her number. And his sister just lied on his mom too, so I don't know. I just don't know what to think. Please help and don't be too harsh. This is really hard on me as it is. Sorry, it's a big and kind of confusing read so I can't do a TLDR. Oop, I'm sorry that happened to you. Maybe it did happen then. I just don't want to see it that way. I'm thinking about taking more time to look into it and figure out what the truth is, but I don't want to further traumatize the girl if it's true. The situation sounds very fishy. Your sister and family's behavior is weird. However, it's very common for families to all agree the accuser is lying to protect the status quo. That's not unusual. All of sister's behavior towards your husband does not suggest that it did or didn't happen. It does suggest an enmeshment there, but it could be for any reason. It could be what's caused her to lie, or it could be because he's groomed her from being young. Things she's done like asking to live with you, the hugging during an accusation, having a baby so close to you after being original upset. These aren't facts and can't prove anything one way or another, but they certainly don't suggest that nothing happened. Her obsession with your husband could have caused her to lie. However, here's the reason I think he might be guilty. It's very strange a cousin also claims this too. And the most unusual thing is that he apologized. I'm sorry, but I don't care what my parents felt like they had to sign. I would never ever, and I think most men would agree too, apologize for signing someone I did not, especially my relatives. That's the most serious accusation ever and it will stick with you for life and everyone will think awfully of you. Most people who do actually commit the act, never apologize. Think about that. Sorry. If it didn't happen and nobody believes it did, why was he pressured by their dads to do it? If it didn't happen and the apology had to happen for some reason I can't make sense of, then why did he hide it for so long? It seems more likely that he's apologized for something he did do and then only told you once the dust had settled and he had control of the situation again. Also, you don't mention any police involvement when it's CPS is involved. There should be. Why not? Also think about the fact he told you last, once it was all resolved. If he was facing an issue and was innocent and needed help, he'd have told you. One of the main concerns is that they don't want you approaching the sister. However, I think that's strange because it's like they don't want you to hear it from her mouth. All I can say, whatever you choose. When your children grow up, keep an extra eye on your husband around your kids and their friends. Update 1. After reading through the comments, I had a lot more questions and points to bring up to him, all of which he answered. He completely denied ever doing anything to either girl and says he only apologized to keep peace between households. I told him he was a coward and that if he wasn't guilty, he shouldn't have apologized. He agreed. I then reached out to the family myself. I asked his mom for specifics, as well as the mom of the cousin that accused him. No solid answers. Still blank stares from the sister and Snapchat from the cousin. But I already checked his phone and Snapchat data. He hasn't had the app in months and he does not have her number at all. His mom then said to the sister that we could go to the police and have a report written up so she could have some kind of justice, and she went white as a ghost and denied it. I looked at her and asked her, "Can you at least tell us what happened so I can know if I need to keep my kids away from him?" And she started crying. Like ugly crying. She admitted to feeling like I was taking her protector away. Everyone gets to have their happy family except for me. She admitted to planning her pregnancy after we announced ours and proceeded to show us the texts between her and the cousin plotting this shit over the last few months. They planned out what they were gonna say. They had even planned out a D-pic they had found on the internet, but once the mom had said okay, show me, I know my son has a birthmark, that story stopped. Their mom sat there, like shocked. And I walked out of the house. I called my fiancé and told him that he's never to see or speak to her again. Hopefully that's the right thing to do? He also cried and apologized over and over for letting this happen. I just want it to be over. Our wedding is in 9 days and I feel like this just fucked up the whole experience in advance. Can I press charges on either girl for false claims? I'll update again soon if there are any changes. Thanks for any advice you guys give/gave. Edit. Fiancé and his mom have apologized to me and promised to never keep anything from me again. I told him that he didn't give me the chance to stand up for him, that's my job as his partner, and he broke down and said he was just scared to lose us. So we're gonna have to work on the trust, but it's better than what it could have been, I guess. Edit 2. I am blown away by people saying this is fake and acting as though people aren't capable of falsely accusing one another. Absolutely wild, and very sad to see how justice is dished out. Update 2. I thought things were going to quiet down after she admitted it. It did the exact opposite. We went to the police the next morning with the screenshots of their texts and I asked them, point blank, to make a report so it's on record. The officer looked through everything, asked me if any official report had been filed against my fiancé, no, asked me if anyone had contacted us pretending to be law enforcement, no, and then said they could take an informational report and suggested I talk to the DA's office if I wanted to pursue anything for the cousin since she's 18. He also told me to get a no contact order if they reach out again. So I did exactly that. I filed for a protective order for me and the kids. Court gave us a temporary one within hours because of the messages. I walked out clutching the paperwork like it was a newborn. 2 hours later, his mom calls me sobbing. The blood sister who works for CPS had shown up at their house with the other blood brother, trying to take the youngest for a wellness check. No call, no appointment, no nothing. His mom refused to let them in. I told her to put me on speaker and ask CPS sister for her badge number and supervisor's name. She told me, "You don't tell me how to do my job." I repeated, "Badge number. Supervisor." She hung up. I called the CPS office myself, gave the badge number from when she first messaged them months ago about paperwork, and filed a complaint that she was weaponizing her position. I didn't expect anything to come from it, I just wanted it documented. That night, cousin's mom blew up my phone, telling me I was ruining her daughter's life and that we all know what he is. I told her to stop contacting me and that any further messages would go to the officer who took our report. She said she didn't send anything and then sent me 10 more voice notes in a row. I forwarded them to the officer and my printer spit out every text while I shook. The next day I took my phone, the printouts, and our temporary protective order to a lawyer. I thought he was going to laugh me out of his office. He didn't. He explained it like I was a kid and my brain was liquid. Criminal charges for false reporting aren't really on the table because they didn't file with the police, but civil, cease and desist now, defamation if they keep going. He drafted a letter while I sat there, then asked if we'd considered reporting the CPS sister to their state's ethics board too. I told him I already had. He actually smiled. While we were there, fiancé's phone buzzed. It was a group text, sister, the adopted one, and cousin, with the CPS sister added. Sister typed a paragraph about how she never said it happened and only wanted him to admit he hurt her feelings and we're even now. I almost threw the phone. My lawyer told us not to respond and to screenshot everything. 10 minutes later, the CPS sister sent my fiancé a message directly, "You're not allowed near minors." I'll make sure of it. From her work email. I swear my heart stopped. My lawyer's face changed and he added a sentence to the letter about harassment and misuse of authority. We went home and I told fiancé he needed to call his mom and tell her we're not doing the big wedding. I wanted to breathe. I wanted a day that wasn't going to be a war zone. He stared at me, then nodded, and said okay. Courthouse. We booked it for the original date and told exactly 4 people. No posts. No save the dates. I ordered a white dress from Amazon like a teenager panic ordering a prom dress and sat on the floor with a seam ripper fixing the straps while my baby screamed and I cried on the fabric. The CPS complaint? It didn't just go into the void. A supervisor called me back the next morning. Very calm voice, very measured words, asking for dates and times and any documentation. I gave them everything. I told her about the unannounced wellness check, the threatening email, the way they helped the adopted sister Leav with paperwork. She thanked me and said, "We're opening an internal investigation." 30 minutes later, cousin's mom texted me, "Enjoy your little power trip," and then, she's suspended. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. I just sat there with my baby on my chest and stared at the spot where my ceiling has a water stain that looks like Florida and tried to breathe. The apology his mom made him do? His dad admitted he'd forced it because CPS sister had told them there'd be a case opened on the youngest if they didn't handle it in-house. So he walked in and apologized for something he didn't do because he was scared the baby in that house would end up somewhere worse. I am still angry he didn't tell me, but that snapped something in me I didn't know I had. They have been living under someone else's threat for months and I didn't see it. I wasn't going to, but I told my best friend, his older sister, the one I grew up with. She came over. She brought coffee and baby Tylenol and sat on the floor with me and listened. Then she pulled her phone out, hit record, and called adopted sister on speaker. "Tell the truth," she said, and then didn't say another word, and adopted sister did. She said she made it up because you all pick her over me now and because he wouldn't take us with you and because she wanted to blow up the wedding. We said nothing. When she was done, older sister said, "I love you, but we can't come back from this right now," and hung up. We sent that recording to the lawyer too. We got married at the courthouse yesterday. Me, him, my best friend, my mom, and the babies in car seats that we lugged through the metal detector, like we were sneaking illegal clouds inside. He cried when he said the vows, ugly cried, shoulders shaking, and I did too. We went to a diner after. The waitress stuck a candle in a pancake and told us congratulations, and for 10 minutes my chest didn't feel like it was caving in. When we got home, there were 2 things taped to our door. The first was the temporary protective order, stamped and served for cousin. The second was a note from the CPS sister, in handwriting, not even an envelope, "You will regret this." I took a picture. I put it in a Ziploc bag like it was evidence in a TV show and slid it under a stack of bills. We called the non-emergency line and reported it. The officer came, wrote it down, and asked if we had security cameras. We didn't. We do now. They're cheap ones and they've already caught a raccoon that looks suspiciously like a small burglar, but they make me feel better. I wish I could say his family got behind us all at once, but it was messy. His mom came over, apologized to my face, apologized to him for not shutting it down, told me she is picking me and her son and our kids. His dad cried in the garage with him like men cry when they don't know what to do with their arms. The adopted sister sent a string of texts that went from "you don't understand me" to "you're ruining my life" to "can you bring me formula." I didn't answer. I sent my lawyer another screenshot. The cousin hasn't contacted me since the letter went out. Her mom has, but it stops at the "this number has been blocked" screen now. I know people will ask if I'm afraid to leave my kids with him. I'm not. That feeling I had when his face looked off? It wasn't guilt. It was fear. He's been walking around ready to be accused of a thing he didn't do by a kid he helped raise and a cousin he watched learn to ride a bike. He's starting therapy next week. I start the week after. We're going to take the anger and the love and try to make something that doesn't choke us. We're keeping the big celebration for later, when the dust settles. Maybe next summer. Maybe in our backyard with Costco flowers and a tarp over the Florida-shaped water stain if we still have it. For now, I'm married to the person I chose before any of this, and I have a folder on my desktop called Evidence Like a Little Dragon Horde, and cameras that catch raccoons, and a lawyer who answers emails fast, and a mom who texted me "I'm proud of you today." And the house is quiet tonight. That feels like a miracle. Update 3. I thought the cameras would buy me sleep. Instead, the first night they bought me a video of her on my porch at 1:41 a.m., hoodie up, hair hanging out, walking straight up to our door like she owned it. She didn't knock. She put both her hands flat on the glass, leaned her forehead there for a second, then tried the handle. It made that hollow metal clack and my stomach dropped like I'd missed a stair. She took a folded paper out of her sleeve and slid it between the door and the frame. Then she turned and jogged back down our steps to a car with the headlights off. The little raccoon burglar timed his appearance perfectly, waddling into the frame like a bouncer showing her out. We called. An officer came out, watched the clip twice, and then stood in my living room frowning at the folded paper like it might bite him. It was one sentence, printed in 72-point font: "We can still fix this." No signature. No envelope. I had the weirdest urge to put it in a sheet protector. He told me to file for a separate order against her first thing in the morning and to let them know if the car came back. We didn't sleep. I was at the courthouse when it opened. The clerk knew me by then. She stapled the packet and slid it across to me like she was passing a note in class. The judge saw me on the emergency docket. I showed him the video. He granted it. Temporary, again, but this one was for her, too. I walked out with a second stack of papers and a feeling like I'd been holding my breath since March. While I was in line to pay the filing fee, my phone rang. Unknown number, state prefix. It was a woman from the CPS ethics office, not the supervisor I'd already talked to. She said she was following up on the internal complaint and asked if I'd be willing to put my statement under oath. I said yes before she finished the sentence. She sent a notary to my house that afternoon. I read the whole thing out loud with my baby on my lap and my voice shaking and signed next to the stamp that made that satisfying ka-chunk sound. I didn't know you could notarize Fury, but apparently you can. Service on the cousin went out clean. Service on the CPS sister was a mess. The sheriff's office tried at her listed address and she wouldn't answer the door. The deputy called me from the driveway, saying he could see someone moving behind the blinds. 10 minutes later, my ring cam showed a different deputy walking up my steps with a folded packet and a "you've been served" smile. I asked if it was legal to serve me my own paperwork. He laughed and said they'd caught her leaving her house, followed her to our neighborhood, and served her at the curb. She told them she was checking on the welfare of a minor. He told her to turn the car around and not come back. It's in the report. Then the cousin's hearing hit. I wore the Amazon dress I'd hemmed for the courthouse and a blazer I found in a thrift store with a lipstick stain that I prayed wasn't cursed. The courtroom was a beige box with a clock that ticked too loud and a judge who looked like a tired grandpa. Cousin came with her mom and a lawyer who kept whispering to her like she was going to bolt. My lawyer sat with his elbow on our table like he'd grown roots there. The judge asked me why I wanted the order. I said because she said things that could have put my husband in prison, because she sent threats, because she kept contacting us after we told her not to, because I don't trust her not to escalate when she doesn't get the reaction she wants. He asked the cousin if she sent the messages. She said she didn't remember. My lawyer slid the stack forward like a magic trick. The judge read the part where she and adopted sister planned the fake screenshot. He looked up over his glasses and asked the cousin's mom if she understood what perjury is. She said we were scared. The judge granted a 1-year order: no contact with me, my husband, or our kids, no third-party contact, no social media posts, no loitering at our address, school, or his work. He told her if she violated it, she'd be back in front of him in handcuffs. She started crying. Her mom glared at me like I'd run over their dog. I held my baby and told my knees to stop shaking. We walked out into the parking lot and older sister was there leaning against her car in sunglasses like we were in a movie from 2003. She didn't say anything, just opened her arms. I stood there for a second and then let my head hit her shoulder. She said, "You did good." I laughed and cried at the same time, and it sounded like when you try to cough and sneeze and hiccup at once. The CPS part did not immediately resolve. It did something stranger. 2 days after the hearing, a man from IT security at CPS called me. He said, in that voice people use when they're trying not to be gossip, that as part of the investigation they'd pulled access logs and found multiple unauthorized queries on our names and address from her login. He asked if I'd ever given her permission to access my information. I said absolutely not. He thanked me and hung up, and I stood in the kitchen holding the phone wondering if it's supposed to feel like winning when you're being proven right about the worst people. That same afternoon, her supervisor called. She said CPS sister was on administrative leave pending the outcome and that step 1 of their ethics process was an investigatory interview. She asked if I wanted to be present. I said no, I wanted it recorded. She said it would be. I said, she left a handwritten threat on my door. The supervisor said, evenly, we have that in our file. I don't know why that made me feel like I could finally set the stack of papers down without the wind taking them, but it did. The adopted sister texted older sister and asked if she could come by to talk to me woman to woman. Older sister didn't tell me until after she said no. Not while there's an active order, she wrote back, and then blocked her. That night, we got a DoorDash we didn't order. 3 cheeseburgers and a milkshake. The note said peace offering. I refused to touch it. My husband ate one because he said he didn't want the driver to get penalized if we didn't accept. He sat on the floor and ate it in silence while the baby chewed on the edge of the protective order packet like it was a teething toy. Therapy started. He went first. He came home with red eyes and that mole under his eye puffy look. He said it was weird to say out loud that he was scared all the time. I went 2 days later and cried in the first 5 minutes because the therapist asked me what I wanted to feel like and I said safe, and then my mouth refused to close. We're doing weekly. We decided to bring some of this to couples, too, because trying to hold all of it apart is like trying to hold water in separate fists. A small bright thing, the diner waitress remembered us. We went back with the babies after the hearing because I felt wrung out and hollow and needed coffee in a place where nobody knew any of our last names. She brought a pancake with another candle and told us she'd been married 3 times and the third one stuck. I told her I was aiming for 1. She laughed and said, then tip big. We did. The next weird thing was mail. Certified letter, green card on the front. It was from CPS. I braced myself. It wasn't closure and it wasn't nothing. It was a notice that they were initiating a review of the removal process that placed adopted sister with the blood siblings because of reported procedural irregularities, and a line asking if we would be willing to provide any documentation about duress or coercion. I made a copy of the dad's admission about the forced apology, the screenshots, the note, and I slid everything into a manila envelope with the sharp edge like a paper cut and sent it certified back. I didn't know whether to be glad or sick to my stomach that this rope was now wrapped around more people. We installed 1 more camera at the end of the driveway. The very first clip it got was the raccoon again, carrying a hamburger bun. I decided that meant every dumb small thing that was supposed to hurt us was going to feed something we didn't plan for. It made sense in my head in a way I can't explain without sounding like I need more therapy. The last thing happened last night. A plain sedan pulled up slow outside. I watched on the app and my heart sprinted. A woman got out, not anyone I recognized. She walked to the edge of our lawn, stayed outside the property line, and set a white envelope on the sidewalk like she was leaving an offering. Then she got back in her car and drove away. No hoodie. No creeping. Just placed it and left. It had the ethics board's letterhead. They were acknowledging receipt of our complaint and informing us that the employee named in the report had been found to have violated agency policy regarding conflicts of interest, misuse of confidential information, and conduct unbecoming. Effective immediately, her employment was terminated. There were 2 more paragraphs about appeal rights that I skimmed and then read 3 more times because my brain didn't know what to do with the word terminated. I sat on the steps and read it out loud to my husband. He didn't say anything at first. He just put his head in his hands and made that sound that's not a sob and not a laugh, the one that only comes out when your body finally understands it doesn't have to run anymore. Then he stood up, walked to the kitchen, and threw the cheeseburger bag away. It's stupid that felt like a ritual, but it did. I'm not naive enough to think a letter fixes people. I know this doesn't rewind the last few months or stitch up the hole it tore in our family. The adopted sister texted older sister again today, asking for money. The cousin's mom posted a half-blind rant on her Facebook about snakes. The youngest is still in that house with a water stain shaped like Florida, and I'm still teaching myself how to breathe in between checking the cameras and wiping spit up off my shoulder. But when I put the termination letter in my evidence folder, it felt like the first thing in there that wasn't just proof of harm. It felt like a hinge. We're still doing the backyard thing in the summer. Older sister brought over a box of string lights she pulled out of her attic and I hung them from the curtain rods to see how they'd look, and now my living room looks like a cheap wedding in December and I love it. The house is quiet again tonight. The raccoon is probably out there somewhere with a milkshake mustache. My husband is asleep on the couch with the baby on his chest, and the cameras make that little chime when a moth flies too close, and, for once, my heart doesn't jump with it. I'll keep you posted if anything else shifts. For the first time in months, I hope it doesn't. Update 4. The first hit came sideways. His job called him into a room that smelled like dry erase markers and breakroom coffee and told him they'd received an anonymous email saying he was dangerous around minors. He texted me HR and my chest squeezed like a fist. I grabbed the binder with the protective orders and the termination letter and drove over with the baby on my hip and spit up on my shoulder. The HR lady had that soft voice people use for injured birds. She showed me the email, throwaway account, no signature, and then asked if there was context. I set the stack down and watched her read, watched her eyebrows climb when she got to the part about the internal investigation and the fired CPS sister. She scanned the QR on our camera stills like she wanted to verify my reality with a second device. We have to investigate complaints, she said, but this looks retaliatory. She tapped her pen against the letterhead and then looked at my husband. We're not putting you on leave. If anything else comes, forward it to me. He nodded. He kept nodding even after we were in the car. He sat there with both hands on the wheel, not turning, and said, I didn't do anything and I still feel like I'm in trouble. I put my hand on the back of his neck and we sat in the parking lot until the baby started chewing on the HR business card. That night, blue lights painted the walls of our living room. 2 hard knocks. I had the baby and the dog was losing his mind and my heart was trying to crawl out through my throat. One officer stood back by the steps with his palms open. The other one did the cop voice that's meant to be gentle. We got a call for a welfare check, he said. Anonymous. I said, we're okay, out loud like I was convincing myself. He asked if he could see the kids. I said no, not at midnight, not without a warrant. My voice came out steadier than I felt. We have ongoing harassment and protective orders. I can show you. I held the paperwork like a shield. He read fast. You could see the click into place on his face. We'll note the address, he said. If this keeps happening, file a report. This is the kind of thing that gets people charged. He left me with a card and a cursive signature I can't read, and I stood in the doorway staring at the dark where the raccoon usually does his little rounds like a tiny night watchman. 2 days later was the hearing for the adopted sister's order. The hallway outside the courtroom hummed with the sound of shoes on tile and someone's baby crying down the corridor like a ghost of mine. She came with a stroller and a legal aid attorney who held a folder against her chest like a shield. Her hair was pulled back in that postpartum way that reveals where pieces are still growing back. She looked small and then she saw me and put her chin up like it was armor. The judge had a way of making you feel like he'd been doing this since the invention of paper. He asked her attorney if they objected to a 1-year order. The attorney whispered and the sister's eyes filled fast. No, the attorney said. We're not contesting. The judge turned to me. Anything you want on the record? I said I didn't want contact, didn't want her on my porch, didn't want her around my babies. I said I wanted her to get help. I didn't plan that last part, it just came out of my mouth and hung there. The judge nodded, granted the order, told her he hoped she took the time to work on herself and the baby. When we were leaving, she reached into the stroller and adjusted the blanket like that would fix the whole world. She didn't look at me. I didn't look back. In the bathroom, I washed my hands too long and ended up laughing because the soap smelled like hotel body wash from a trip I took once in 2017 when I thought my life was complicated. The ethics board sent a second letter, this one registered mail with a green card I had to sign for. They used the phrase barred from future employment with the agency. I read that sentence twice and then read it out loud to the kitchen table like I was blessing it. There was a line about referral to a licensing body and I realized I don't know where people like her go after something like this. I just know they won't be knocking on my door with a clipboard again. The cousin did exactly what the judge told her not to do. She posted a video with some sad piano music and a paragraph that didn't use our names but used enough nouns that anyone who's ever had Thanksgiving with us would know exactly who she meant. My older sister sent me a screen recording before I saw it. I forwarded it to our lawyer and took a breath that tasted like metal. He filed a contempt motion and we got squeezed onto a Monday docket next to 5 DUIs and a landlord dispute. She cried in front of the same tired grandpa judge and he didn't raise his voice, he just read his own order back to her. No social media, he said. No indirect contact. He gave her 24 hours to take it down and a $250 fine that her mom paid with a loud sigh. He extended our order 6 more months and looked at her like he hoped she would sit with the consequences long enough to feel them. We started making a tiny life in the cracks. The string lights are up in the living room because I can't make myself take them down, so every night our cheap couch looks like it's at prom. Older sister came over with a bag of fake peonies she found at the craft store and we stuck them in a vase my mom gave me that looks like a beehive. We did a trial run in the backyard with paper plates and my husband grilled hot dogs like he was performing surgery. The raccoon climbed up on the fence, sat like a small drunk uncle, and watched the whole thing. When my husband handed me a plate, our hands touched and my chest did that jump like it remembered how to be a chest. Then the dumbest, pettiest thing, somebody egged our house. It was 2 a.m. The splats popped like wet applause against the siding. The cameras caught the car, caught the arm flinging out of the passenger window, caught a license plate. It wasn't cousin mom's SUV, it wasn't anyone I recognized. It was the Blood Brothers gray coupe. I don't know if he did it himself or if he loaned the car to someone reckless and bored, but I printed the stills anyway and filed a report. The officer stood on my porch and shook his head and said, "I don't get paid enough to be disappointed like this." We hosed the egg off in the morning while the baby squealed every time the water hit his toes and the dog tried to bite the stream. It felt wrong to laugh while I was scrubbing custard out of a window screen and then I decided that's the only way to win. His dad asked to come over. He stood in my kitchen and cried without any of the garage limp arms. He said he was sorry, that he was ashamed he let anyone make him feel like there was a right way to protect his family that included throwing his son to a room of girls who were lying. He said, "I didn't know how to pick until it was almost too late." My husband hugged him and made that hiccup laugh he makes when he's trying not to break down and I cut them both a piece of grocery store cake like it was communion. There's a note on our fridge now in my handwriting, call DA back. It's about the porch note, the midnight welfare check, the HR email, the egging. The detective on the case said the pieces add up to something they can put a name to. Harassment. Stalking. Maybe nothing that makes a headline, maybe enough to make a file that sits on a prosecutor's desk with our address on it. He asked if I wanted to give a statement for victim impact if they file. My mouth said yes before my head could argue. The CPS review about how they separated the adopted sister and the youngest kicked up dust over there. His mom got a call from a caseworker who sounded like she was 12 and reading a script about reassessing placements. I felt sick. I told her to record everything. She did. They're not moving the youngest. They are updating the safety plan to include that nobody from the blood side can show up on the porch without a scheduled visit. It's weird to hear an agency write your life in bullet points you never get to see, but it made me feel like I could sleep without one eye open. We had a tiny thing in the backyard. Not the big party. Just us, older sister, my mom, his parents, and our neighbor who brings our trash cans in when we forget because he likes an excuse to talk about his tomatoes. We hung the lights and put a sheet over the fence where the wood is splintering and played music off someone's phone and ate pasta salad like we were in a commercial for a life I keep pretending we get to have. At one point, my husband stood up with a plastic cup and said he didn't have a toast because his words had been all used up, but he wanted to say thank you for not leaving. He looked at me when he said it and I felt heat run up my neck. I kissed him like there weren't 5 other people and a raccoon watching. When we came inside later, there was a letter under the door. White envelope. My name in block letters. My stomach flipped like a coin in the air. I opened it with a butter knife and my hands shook so hard the paper rattled. It wasn't a threat. It was from a clerk at the court, the one with the butterfly tattoo on her wrist. She wrote on court letterhead, which I didn't even know you could do for something kind. "I'm not supposed to do this," it said, "but I wanted you to know I've seen what you filed. It matters. People don't usually bring this much in order. You are doing a good job." I cried over bureaucratic paper like it was poetry. I put it in the evidence folder even though it's not evidence of anything but the fact that sometimes strangers hold you together. Tonight the house is quiet again. The water stain still looks like Florida. The cameras chimed and it was just a moth battering itself against the idea of a porch light. I'm learning how to let the chime be a moth. I'm learning how to take my hand off the back of my husband's neck in the parking lot and let him breathe on his own. I'm learning that sometimes the craziest thing is that Normal came back wearing sweatpants and smelled like grill smoke. If anything changes, I'll come back here, but for the first time, I'm starting to imagine a stretch of updates where the most exciting thing is a raccoon with a hamburger bun.